Welcome to episode number 309 of Destination Linux. Destination Linux is a video podcast from the Tux Digital Network. If you're new to the show, Destination Linux is a podcast perfect for all experience levels. Whether you're brand new to open source or a guru of sudo, this is the show for you. My name is Ryan.
I'm Michael.
And I'm Jill.
On this week's episode of Destination Linux, we're going to interview the SCALE Conference Chairperson, Ilan. Then we're going to discuss the desktop that shall not be named and some improvements coming to the said desktop that we won't name, because if we do it right now, Michael won't shut up about it, so we just won't name it. I
wonder what that is.
Plus, we have our tips, tricks, and software picks. All of this coming up right now on Destination Linux. This week in our community feedback, we have some feedback from Johan. And if you want to send in your own feedback, you can go to tuxdigital.com/contact to get in touch and send us an email or join our forum. We're also on Discord. So if you want to hang out and game or just discuss different topics with the community, chat about Linux, go to tuxdigital.com/Discord. Johan goes on to say, just recently discovered Destination Linux. I am enjoying Linux for about 10 years, using it on my main machine always, but getting to know you really gives me a boost, and thanks for that. It's awesome. Thank you. Last episode, there was a question about how to organize all your photos from Ryan, so I thought, I have a good idea. Although I do not use it because I have very few photos, I'm a big fan of org mode and Emacs, and this solution is using Emacs agenda timestamps and tags to look for photos. Carl Voigt wrote an Emacs module, Memax Photos, to organize his photos, and he put the link, which we'll have in the show notes there. And he wrote a blog post on how he is using it to manage his digital files. If you're an Emac user like me, this would be great for you, Ryan, or it might be a good tip for other listeners of the show. Kind regards, love you guys and girls, Johan. So first of all, thank you so much for your amazing comment and sending that in. Secondly, I definitely am not a user of Emacs yet. But if this is a solution that allows me to get out of the purgatory of managing thousands of photos that my wife takes endlessly of every little thing the kids do, then I may become an Emacs user. So I'm definitely going to check this out, and I'll let you know how it goes on my adventures in photo management.
Oh, Johan. So thank you so much for this great tip and the links and the tutorial. This is awesome. And yeah, I think Ryan will be an Emacs user now.
Wow, look at that. That's it. As soon as I touch it, I'm just going to be addicted, right? Is that how this works?
It's
All
good.
right.
I still love Emacs.
Okay, I'm going to check it out. I'll let you know. I'm very excited to announce that we have a new sponsor of the Tux Digital Network in here. And I'm super excited about this sponsor because it's Linode. So what we want you to do right now is visit linode.com/TUX and see why over 1 million developers trust Linode for their infrastructure. From their award-winning customer support, 24/7, 365 days a year to every user, to ease of use and setup, it's clear why developers and businesses have been trusting Linode for projects both big and small since 2003. Michael, one of the cool things is they also have this ability to instantly drop nodes anytime you want. And one of the new nodes that you can just drop in there is for Mastodon. And we know a lot of people right now are wanting to set up their own Mastodon and servers and things like that. And also there are a ton of different distros to choose from. If you're someone who wants to use Alma, if you're someone who wants to use OpenSUSE, you want to use Fedora, all of those options are there for you to set up your nodes with. Linode offers industry best price to performance value for all compute instances, including shared, dedicated, high memory, and GPU offerings as well. So if you're doing some things with AI, machine learning, all of that, that's all accessible to you there. Visit linode.com/tux, create a free account, and you're going to get $100 free credit as well to play around with all the different nodes that they have there, including in the instant drops for nodes that you can do, so you don't have to sit there and script it and set it up yourself. You're building your own website, whatever you're doing, you could do it on Linode. And aside from just cloud hosting, Linode recently mentioned has that GPU hosting plan there where you can do machine learning, neural net use, built with RTX 6000 GPUs, which is a hardware addict.
Very cool.
That was really impressive for me. So check them out, linode.com/tux. Today, we would like to welcome Ilan to the show. Ilan is the conference chairperson for our favorite Linux and Open Source Conference SCALE, or otherwise known as the Southern California Linux Expo. Ilan, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. It's exciting to be here.
Yay!
If you didn't notice while I was introducing you, Jill was clapping. So, Jill, I feel like you know Ilan really well, and there's some history there because you've been to every SCALE there's been.
Yeah, he's been a dear friend every year, and unfortunately, I only get to see him one time a year. But it's like we've never been apart. I swear.
So I love it. Always good to see you and the rest of the Linux Chicks team, and excited to be on the show and talking about SCALE, which is coming up in March 9th through the 12th in Pasadena, California, just by LA.
Perfect. We're really excited about SCALE. Michael and I got our first chance to go to SCALE last year and meet Jill, which made it special in itself, but also got to experience SCALE for the first time, which is amazing. But before we get into the discussion about SCALE itself, we want to get to know a little more about you. So we need your origin story, like a good Marvel movie and or X-Men movie. We need your origin story here. What originally got you interested in open source?
Like a lot of folks, my first interaction with open source was Linux. Although I guess maybe others are picked. Would say things like Firefox or LibreOffice or what have you if they started from the other side. For me, it was Linux, and what it came down to was we finally got broadband. Where I was living in LA, which you'd think like big city, of course you could get that right away, but it turns out that like when infrastructure is old, it takes forever to get you things, and LA is so wide out, so spread out that you'll have like some pocket in the middle, like some pocket that you say, of course they would have all of the latest tech, and it's like, no, you're in the hills somewhere and connected to the rest of the world with a string and a tin can. So we finally got broadband and internet. I wanted to use it more often and didn't want to share, didn't want to have to take turns to use the internet with the rest of the family. So I built a little Linux router box using with it was probably Red Hat Linux something at the time, and just got that up and running so I could get our internet shared across a bunch of computers, and that sort of started the journey. Been many years since, and just from there started to explore other open source projects, other communities, and just really enjoyed the collaboration, really enjoyed the opportunity to learn. And as middle school, high school kid at the time, that was the type of software that, the type of software and capabilities you would get access to in the open source world was something that I, in the proprietary world would have been very expensive or very difficult to, things to pull off. Suddenly I was able to look at source code for things and run as many of things as I wanted without licenses. And, nobody was telling me, no, I couldn't do something. And it was a great opportunity to learn. And so, nice. I attribute most of my technical career probably to that early access to open source software in Linux. So.
That's awesome. I love you mentioned people telling you what you could do with your software, because back then it was an issue for many different reasons that you mentioned. But today it's even more of a problem. We have arguably more access to faster internet, more things, computers. But the way the software licensing and things is written and done, it's less control than we've ever had, making Linux hopefully continue to stand out even more in that. So
yeah, I mean, I think it depends, right? I think the challenge is that a lot of the things that we could, that we might only have been able to pull off with open source are now they're now available as software as a service or hosted online services or various things like that, and so those are oftentimes not open source. And so I think one of the challenges is figuring out how do we not end up in a world where everything but our operating system and like the web browser is closed source as a SaaS, but our portal to it is open and something that we have control over. So I don't think it's that dire, but it's that yet. But it's something that we just have to keep an eye on as a community. And I think there's other parts of our world where that's being dug in as well, not just open source. Like in New York, there was a right to repair bill that was passed late last year. And it's not as strong as everybody was hoping, but at least it's it's putting us in a position that
it's better than nothing.
It's one of the first steps in the direction of like, hey, we still own our stuff, and that's great.
Yep.
So Ilan, let's talk about SCALE origins. How did SCALE come to be, and how did that interest in open source lend you to being the awesome conference chair that you are?
So SCALE started in 2002, but really its origins are an event that came out of the CME Conejo Valley Lug called Lugfest. Back in the late 90s, early 2000s, when a lot of Linux and open source was really hard to use, we had this community of lugs. I mean, not just in LA. This was a worldwide concept, but LA being as spread out as it wasn't like there was one single LA lug. There ended up being something like, I don't know, I would guess probably 20 lugs at peak. I think there was one year where I was going, like, I could find myself at 3 or 4 different lug meetings on a given week if I wanted to, because there was just, that's how many there were.
Yes.
They weren't necessarily all big, right? Some of them were just like, 5 people at a coffee shop or something, but or 10 people in somebody's living room or whatever it might be. But there was a lot of them. And so as more of them popped up, a lot of us didn't get to see each other on a regular basis. So, the annual Lug Fest that we ran out of the Simi Valley Lug was an opportunity for the university lugs and the local lugs and the ones that are, a little further out from wherever, from each of us were to all get back to get together. And brave LA traffic, which is actually the biggest, always biggest challenge with getting anybody to go to anything in LA is, how many freeways do they have to cross? So that was that we would get to do that, once or twice a year, depending on the year. As a bit of a reunion. Unfortunately, the facility that was donated to us for using that space by Nortel, when Nortel went out of business, went away. And so we sort of stopped doing Lugfest for a little bit and thought, well, how do we bring that magic back of getting everybody together? That's where Scale was born. What we realized is we couldn't just rely. We realized 2 things. One is if we made it a big conference, all of our favorite, open source developers and leaders and luminaries they'll have to come, which is not actually true, but that's what you think when you're 18, 19, 20 years old as you're putting these things together. And then, the other thing was we wanted to make sure that we had a little bit of control over our own destiny by, having our own budgets and having our, facility that we rented out and all that kind of stuff, rather than just waiting to find out when some company was going to donate a cafeteria to us or whatever it might be for the week. And so, naively, we thought we'll get, a bunch of lug members got together from different lugs, and we kicked off the planning of the first Scale for 2002 and held it at on campus at USC, where we'd rented out a venue and had some support from the CS department, and it was great. I remember the first year was like single track. We had Robert Love was one of the prolific kernel developers at the time, working on locking and schedulers and such, and he was one of our speakers. And I remember a few other, really big names, at least for me at the time, came out. I think we might have had 100, 150 people at most, and everybody was really excited about how that event was. And they're like, well, of course, next year you'll be at the LA Convention Center and you'll be 1,000 times as big. Turns out we were at the Convention Center the next year. It wasn't 1,000 times as big. It was maybe double or triple at the time. And but it, just kept continuing to grow from there. And, as the Linux community and open source community grew, so did we. As the interests of the community changed and our interests individually changed, so did we. So, we've added new tracks depending on the year, depending on what people are excited about or what we're excited about. We've grown to cover more than just Linux, which is why we try to go by Scale these days rather than the Southern California Linux Expo. Not because anything's wrong with Linux. We love Linux, but it's, the event's so broad and has so many other things that we cover these days that, Linux is still at its core, but not the only topic, right? We have security tracks, we have FreeBSD workshops, we have this year there'll be a workshop on how to do all your photo editing and with 100% open source tools in a Libre graphics workshop. And so there's just so many other things, and not all of it requires Linux necessarily. So we want to make sure that we're talking about all that as well. So
sure, I mean that's great. Also, Scale is a fantastic name for the conference. I just wanted to say that.
Yeah. The only problem is it's a little generic. So you search for the word scale, and you might get
that's true.
You might get a kitchen scale. You might get something else. So
that's true.
But no, we like it. It's also just less of a mouthful. Southern California Linux Expo takes a couple seconds to get out there.
Yeah, I learned that a second ago. It wasn't as easy to say as I thought.
Whereas Scale, everybody knows what you can get that out quickly. So
yeah,
and then so that's sort of the beginning of Scale, and there was most of the original founders and organizers are still around. We've had some seat shuffling. We've had a lot of new people join. Every year there's new volunteers that join, but that's what we've been doing for. I guess this is the 20th Scale, but because of the pandemic, we've been doing it for 21 years. But this is the 20th anniversary of actually running the event this March.
Woohoo!
SCALE is great in the name, and it continues to grow, so it continues to scale. And at this point, it's a massive event. This has to be like a really big undertaking for you to be the chair of this kind of conference. So can you take us behind the scenes and tell us a little bit about how you and your team make this event come together each year?
There's probably 120, maybe a little bit more, but something like that, volunteers that run the show every year. And some people come in for a day and help out. Some people come in repeatedly every year for all 4 days or for a week or whatever it might be to make it happen. But that's the wider volunteer group, and everybody that works on SCALE is a volunteer in one way or is a volunteer. Nobody's doing this as their actual job or taking a paycheck or anything. We do it because we love the event. We get other things out of it. But yeah, I think the core group is probably about somewhere between 10 to 15 of us, depending on the year. And those folks start planning for a SCALE, if you're going for March, then we'll start planning, July, June or July. So it's like somewhere between 6 and 8 months of, sometimes 10 months of planning. I think the one challenge is often that you get back from, you want to say like, you want to get back from SCALE and you're like, let's take a week off or a month off or whatever it is and sort of decompress and catch up on the parts of our lives we've ignored. And you're like, no, I can't do that. Got to book a venue, got to get the hotel set up, got to get the call for papers out, got to start all the things for the next year already, because if you don't, then you're back on you're sort of chasing your tail. But yeah, we just each person or each group of people just sort of has an area that we focus on. So we have a team that focuses on our AV setup. We have a team that focuses on our PR and outreach. We have a team that focuses on putting together the content program with our call for papers and recruiting speakers for the event and such like that. So we sort of divide and conquer, and you hopefully many hands make light work. Spreading it out over 6 to 8 months hopefully makes it for light work. But it's a lot of hours. I wish I could say it was. I wish I could say it was easier than it is. But we all still love it, and so we keep up with it 20 years in.
What's amazing to me is when I went to SCALE in any of these events, if you've ever tried to put any type of event together, whether it's just 100 people or less, or of course at SCALE you're dealing with thousands of people. I couldn't believe how well everything seemed organized and put together.
So smooth every year.
But I also know the truth of conferences in that to us, the goers, it's perfect. But behind the scenes, there's probably all kinds of events and things that can come up. And I was just wondering if you could share with us any of the kind of behind the scenes funny events that may take place that are completely unbeknownst to people attending, but things that you guys have had to deal with in the background.
After 20 years, there's lots of hiccups and things to talk about. I'll pick some older ones that are entertaining, I think. So there's one year, I think it was SCALE 3, maybe 4. We were at it must have been 3. We were at the LA Convention Center, and we booked these dates and we were all excited. And, basically 2 weeks, maybe 3 weeks before the conference, the convention center calls us up and they say, by the way, the reason those dates you guys picked are so easy to get was because the Grammys are next door and nobody's going to actually be able to get to the venue. All the streets are closed. It's just, good luck with your event. And what do you mean all the streets are closed? Why would we rent a venue where, I'm exaggerating slightly, but not terribly. People need to be able to drive up and park and, unload materials and get in the building. And they're like, yeah, that seems like something you might want to do, kind of basically good luck. And so people were having to park blocks away and carry equipment and, all this other stuff. And I remember a couple of attendees pulled me aside and they said, just one piece of feedback recommendation for next year, if you could maybe, not run it at a place that's inaccessible because all the streets are shut down. I was like, thanks. I hadn't thought about that. If you hadn't told us, we would have kept doing this exactly as is. So there's things like that. The other fun parts from that year was, because it's the Grammys and because it's LA and it's post 9/11 and all this stuff, security's at its height, at its tight. I mean, that was probably 3-4 years after 9/11. And so you look out the window from the SCALE conference, and all you see is just snipers on the roofs of all the buildings, there to protect the celebrities. But it doesn't end there.
Grammys.
So, yeah, exactly. So all the headlines were like, snipers couldn't keep the geeks away from their open source software or something like that. Yeah. I think that was a Tom's Hardware headline that.
That's fantastic.
I hope it's still online somewhere because I found that story entertaining. or last one that I'll tell is things were getting shipped to us at the venue, and we couldn't got into various positions where we couldn't find stuff. One of our sponsors was freaking out because like all of their most important gear was not available at their booth, and we couldn't figure out where it went and what happened with it. And the convention center staff were like, okay, there's one more room where it could maybe be, but we're if you tell anybody we did this, we'll have to shoot you or something like that. And I figure, I don't know, what is that? 18 years later, 16, 17 years later, I can tell this story. Turns out like there was a room in the convention center that had been locked with like all the award envelopes for the Grammy winners.
Oh, wow.
And like you're not like, we're obviously not allowed in there, because what if I find out that, I don't know, Britney Spears or something won something that year, and I break the news to the world. But that's where that sponsor stuff ended up being. And so one of the original conference founders, Gareth, had to run in with like, very discreetly with the convention center staff and like grab all these boxes out that were ours and definitely were not, the Grammy results.
Yeah, they're not going to get the envelopes. Yeah.
Or the Grammy trophies.
Yeah, exactly. Or, whatever it might be. Yeah. And run those back out to, to the sponsor. And anyways, there's always just like things like that. And so as a show organizer, people run up to me and to other folks on the team throughout the event, and they say, how do you think this year's going? And during the event, you're like, as an organizer, you've got like a list of 100 fires you're trying to put out, and you're like, it's probably fine. I don't know. You have to keep a smile on your face, because you don't necessarily want the 4,000 people that are around you to know that things are terrible. You just you have to find ways to make the show go on.
I could tell you as an attendee, there was It seems like it's just this flawless execution of perfection when I was there.
We couldn't tell at all.
No, if there was any issue at all, which I'm sure there was, because it's a massive event, and the year we went, it's so flawless. It was so well organized. I was just so impressed with it.
You all were out in July?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the fun thing about last July was that, because we had shifted the event for the pandemic, we were supposed to we're usually in March every year. We'll be in March this year. But as March was coming, we're like, oh, Omicron, COVID, what have you, spiking, not to jinx anything for this year. And so we had to move dates and venues. And so, one of the nice things about being in Pasadena is we've sort of learned this venue backwards and forwards. We know where the cables are, or we know where the tunnels to get between rooms are, like all of these different sort of tips and tricks that we picked up over the years to run at the event. Going to a new venue on a few months' notice and learning all of those is hard. We had been at that venue before, like maybe 5, 6,
years.
7 years prior.
Yeah.
But by that point, we'd forgotten it all. Like we'd retrained our brains on being in Pasadena, and so
yes.
So last year was especially tough. But hopefully we'll be back in action, back in full force.
We're excited to see it in Pasadena for sure.
Yeah, Ilan is always so calm, cool, and collected, and so is all the staff. So you would never know that there's all this,
The people are running behind the scenes with their hair on fire. Yeah, anybody who's trying to organize like I said, an event knows the realities that it's crazy.
I mean, it's no different than, like, I don't know, you have a bunch of family over for dinner and you burn the turkey or whatever it might be.
Exactly.
The hosts are freaking out, but the guests are fine. Just multiply that out, whatever number of guests you have, multiply that out to 3,500, 4,000 people, and that's the level of stress we're feeling. So, but it's great. It's like a big reunion of our closest 3,000 some odd friends and family, and
exactly.
Absolutely.
Get to see the same people every year in the same spirit as the original Lugfest, which is just getting together with friends in the community. And our community's just grown. Now we get people coming from Europe, from Asia, from South America. It's always interesting to see like where the farthest, who traveled the furthest on any given year.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
So cool. Ilan, what kind of help do you need this year for SCALE in terms of volunteers?
Sure. So every part of SCALE is always looking for help, whether it's the tech team that runs the show network, or the AV team that makes sure all the audio and video and the recordings from the sessions are done well. So we're always looking for a hand wherever it might be. That makes it often hard to get somebody to a specific place, because they say, I want to help, and you're like, great, what do you want to help with? And you give them a list, and they get it's a little daunting. But whatever your area of expertise, or where you want to, more importantly, where you want to build an area of expertise, we're happy to have you. I think one of the great things about SCALE is that, it's helped a lot of people get their start in different avenues for their career that they weren't necessarily, experts in before. So like folks that have worked up there, we've had, 12, 13, 14-year-old kids come volunteer on our tech team and learn all about networking and systems administration and how to manage the show Wi-Fi. And that's, it's an opportunity to learn from people that are seasoned and know a bunch of these things. We've also had people that are experts in their domain. Like one year there was an open source software developer that was he was spending a bunch of his time working on Wi-Fi and buffer bloat. And he's like, I want to help out with the SCALE network and, help this problem go, basically because I've developed all this expertise in this. We're like, great, come on in. It's like some, this kernel developer comes in and starts helping us, run our run the Wi-Fi for our conference. So you get all levels of expertise. If all of that sounds too daunting and you just want to like hand out some flyers or help people pick up their badges, like we have room for help with that just the day of. And,
Finally, something Michael and I qualify for.
Yes, exactly.
But
I can hand out badges with the best of them.
Yeah, but just anybody that wants to help out, email info@socallinuxexpo.org. Specifically looking for, I think right now, 2 areas where we'd love some extra help is, Drupal experts that can help us with sort of updating and updating our website. It's all Drupal based, but we've been sort of carrying it on for many years, and so I think there's a little bit of room where we could use some extra help there. Our street team or PR team is always looking for additional hands to help get the word out about the event. The last 2 months are really where we are right now is really that's the biggest push of what we're doing. But don't limit yourselves to that. There's lots of different roles throughout SCALE, and so if you email info@socallinuxexpo.org or DM me on Twitter, Ilan Rabinovitch, or wherever, anywhere that you can find us, we'll happily help find you a fun job at SCALE.
Nice.
Yay.
So we mentioned our experience last year, and of course, Jill's told us all of the amazing experiences she's had over the years. There's obviously amazing speakers there. There's booths with so much swag. We had to have Jill actually ship us our swag to our homes because we couldn't pack it all in our carry-on.
Yeah.
So that's really fun. And the swag is like really good. Like the vendors really put out some amazing stuff to get your hands on. So there's so many awesome things going on. You've got, of course, the just hanging out with people and networking and that type of opportunities as well. But what are some other special events that you plan to hold at SCALE this year?
So far, what we've announced is the SCALE Game Night, which is that happens every year on Saturday night. And for a lot of people want to call that the conference party, or that's what it used to be called. It's just like the reception or the cocktail hour. The happy hour.
I remember.
And we used to run like literally just a happy hour with a bunch of drinks and. From some sponsor. I remember, I think Google one year sponsored Google Teenies, which is just an army, it was a martini in every color of the Google logo. But, the challenge is not everybody in our community, not everybody in the tech community and in our communities, likes to, drinks alcohol. And so that's, not necessarily a comfortable situation for them. We also want to make sure that we offer things for our younger attendees and participants, which is, who are a lot of our attendees, because the event bridges a weekend, bring their family members. They bring their kids, they bring their nieces and nephews. They bring, there's LAUSD often buses in a load of kids to come learn about, tech and open source earlier in their education. And so you have to do things that are welcoming to people of all ages, not just people of, that people that want to drink at the bar. And so, which I'm happy to do. And I hope to, always happy to grab a beer or a beverage with SCALE attendees, but we want to make sure that we're welcoming to everybody. And so, we run this game night every year, and it's got we've done everything from blacklight mini golf to laser tag to card games to other things. And so there's still, you can still grab a drink, you can still grab some snacks, you can still do the normal conference reception things, but by having it be the focus be on the games and on the fun, not necessarily on the rest of it, a lot more people get to stay and attend and enjoy that might skip a happy hour.
Yeah.
The other thing that we're doing that's back this year, we skipped it last year, is the SCALE Next Generation track.
Yes, I'm so happy. So happy that's back. Yeah, the youth track. Yeah.
The kids track or the youth track. We struggled what to call it, because basically we wanted to bring in a new generation of open source users and developers and contributors.
Yeah.
That's how we all got our start. We want to make sure that we pay that forward. But if you call it the kids track, anybody over like 9 says, I'm not a kid. I'm not going to that.
Right.
And if you call it the
Michael.
youth track, they're like, I don't know what that means. So naming is hard. Just in conference planning, naming is hard, just like it's hard in computer science. And so
Sure. Next Gen's a good name.
next gen, but then you get somebody saying, I built this like next generation, replacement for Ethernet or a new processor or something, and I've submitted like a cryptocurrency thing. I don't know, whatever's hot that year, and they're like, I'm the next generation. But but anyways, so we have kids from usually from somewhere between like 9 and 18 come in and talk about what they're doing, and we've had things from kids talk about everything from memory management in Linux and how to optimize it, which is just like I'm glad you know this at 9. I definitely didn't.
Yeah.
Right. Some of these kids are just like prodigies and just mind blowing.
Yeah.
I know. We met a few at Scale when we were there. It was like crazy stuff they were doing.
But we've had 3D printing, whatever it might be. But we've had kids that started with us when they were 10, 11, 12 that are now college students.
Yeah, Nova.
10 years later.
Kyla Banks.
Or yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
You run into them, you see them out in the world, and it's just exciting to see how much they've grown, and that I'm sure they would have gotten where they were going without us, but they it's always heartening and brings a smile to the face when you say you ask somebody like Kyla Banks how she got her start. Yeah. And she'll often say Scale. I'm like, yeah, you probably would have done just as well without us, but I'm happy to have you say that, and it brings a smile to our face. So she's she was on MSNBC 1 or 2 years ago being interviewed about like kids in STEM, and she's off in college now and doing great. So Nova is one of our
she got to meet President Obama. Yes, yes,
amongst other things.
And she's spoken at lots of other conferences like the Linux Foundation events and I wanted to tell you, Ilan, I was so excited to have the kids track back, because at the Linux Chicks LA booth, we really focus on youth and getting the youth involved. And in fact, in the past, we've done, gaming on Linux for kids. We've done coding on Linux for kids at our booth demonstrations. So it's really important to us to have that back. Yeah.
That's where I'm going to sneak into that track to learn coding. But so I don't feel like there's any judgment. I'm just going to pretend I'm a kid.
Everybody will be on the same level.
I'm like, I'm 9. Don't judge my Python code.
Yeah.
So that event historically has been an opportunity for younger members of our community to share what they're doing and to get up on stage. And it's, not an opportunity that you often get at, in middle school or early, or high school. But the other thing that we're adding this year is a bunch of hands-on activities for younger community members, so that they get a chance to touch things with open source, even if they're not necessarily ready to do coding yet, or if they just don't want to sit in a room for 45, sit when you're 8, 7, 8, 9, 10, something like that. Sometimes it's hard to sit in a room for 45 minutes for a talk and hear about about a technical topic. Sometimes people are great with it, but so we wanted to give them some interactive activities as well. And so we're adding that this year. So if you're coming to Scale, I guess the message is it's totally cool to bring your kids. In fact, it's encouraged.
Absolutely.
And exhibitors love to meet with them. There's lots of content for them. It's and even the party, it's a game night, not a rager with a keg. So they're welcome as well.
Yeah,
have a great time.
That game night, by the way, had MC Front a lot when we were there, which was so much fun. And Michael danced, which was embarrassing, but also fun for us. So, it's a good chance for people to get out of their shell as well.
Impressive is what he means.
Yeah, impressive. That's the word I was looking for.
That's what he meant.
Yeah. I don't think Front will join us again this year, but we will have some fun activities for you all. And he's always, that's the second time we've had him at Scale, and it's always a crowd pleaser. So we're big Front a lot fans.
There's also like anything from air hockey to like foosball and like virtual reality. There's also a Super Smash Brothers tournament thing that was happening.
Yeah,
there was so much cool stuff. And
did you realize Jill's competitive spirit?
Yeah,
Michael, she was vicious during game night. Like this rage came out of wanting to beat us. Yeah, it was just I never saw that side of it.
It was impressive, and I think she did beat you in air hockey, didn't she?
Let's not bring that up. Let's move on.
Oh, Ryan was really good. So, Elon, we have a question from our audience. What would you like to see more of at Scale from with speaker topics or events? Is there something else that you would like to see that we haven't done yet at Scale?
That's a tough one. After 20 years, a lot of it blurred. I mean,
I know,
first of all, a
you've
lot of
done
it starts to blur together, and I'm like, what year was that? But
Yeah.
I mean, I think we try to stay topical with what's interesting in the world, just because that's, what we're looking to do is build the conference that's interesting to us, and we figure if we're excited about it, the community will be excited about it. I don't know that there's a specific thing I wish we had more of this year or in past years. You can sort of look at our program and see, and the talk submissions that we get on any given year, and you can see what's new and exciting in the world that year. Like there was 2-3 years where, probably 1/3 of our talks were like talks about how to run Asterisk or customize Asterisk or develop on Asterisk or do something with VoIP. And that was, I don't know, 2002 to 2005 probably, that you couldn't get away from the word VoIP anywhere in our submissions. And then there was the years, I don't know, when KVM was, big, and suddenly you had all these talks about how to do virtualization with KVM, or these days a lot of it tends to be containers and Kubernetes and cloud native. But you can definitely see, trends. And so I don't know that there's a specific topic I'm looking for, but one of the things that I do really love about being part of the Scale team and part of planning is every year, for the last 20 years, I've gotten to meet some person I look up to, or that I never expected to get a chance to meet or chat with.
It was nice meeting you too.
Yeah.
Sorry.
So like, I don't know, there was a year where I got to hang out with Lawrence Lessig for a little bit and do a whole bunch of conversations with him about how to plan his keynote, right? And Lawrence, he's this world famous lawyer and activist on, helped develop the, what became Creative Commons, has done a whole bunch of stuff around campaign finance reform these days. Like he's just brilliant. These are people whose books I read or who I studied about in college, or, whose software I've been using for my entire career, and I get to meet them. So, this year, we've got folks like, this year I'll give you something we're not announcing till later this week, technically. So
nice.
I'm sure
an exclusive.
I'm sure all of the folks in the Jitsi that are watching the YouTube will help me by not tweeting this till like Wednesday or Thursday when they see the email. Like a week or two ago, I'm sitting there emailing with Ken Thompson, the creator of Unix and Go and UTF-8,
Wow.
pretty much every piece of software you're using. And it's like, what am I like? Who, it's somebody like we've all built our entire career on, and he's he's just like, I'll be there. So, he'll be one of the keynotes we have this year. Last year was Vint Cerf, which was great.
Vint
so
Cerf.
All these luminaries and open source leaders are folks that I finally get to meet every year. And so that's just one of the keynote speakers for this year, I've just shared with you all, and we'll be announcing him and a whole bunch of others throughout the week.
I'm so excited.
That's fantastic.
Super exciting.
It's been nice because I have seen all these speakers that Elon speaks of. So,
of course you have, Jill.
Vint Cerf and Lawrence.
Plus, you have Jill being there. Jill's going to be there this year. Everyone.
Yeah,
Jill will be there.
Jill, I don't think Jill's missed one yet, right? So
no.
So we're excited. We're excited to have her back every year, and the rest of the Linux Chicks team. What else? So I guess you asked. It's. I mean, even if the two things that it's a little late in this year for adding more stuff to the schedule. We have Upscale, which is our sort of Ignite event that runs an evening set of lightning talks with auto advancing slides, and it's sometimes a little bit more entertaining than informative, but both. There's an opportunity to submit talks for that if folks are still interested in speaking, and you can fit something in just a couple minutes. It's a fun one, and then that's a place where folks can still get involved. Another is if you're involved with an open source project or a community that you want to have, you want to spread the word about it to the Scale open source community. We still have a few nonprofit and community boosts that we can still make happen for Scale this year. So we do have folks like Alma Linux and Fedora and Gentoo and Ubuntu and all kinds of other things like that where the user community is coming out and sharing what they're doing. Linux Chicks, of course, is there every year as well, and you'll not miss Jill in her penguin hat.
Yeah.
But if there's something that you're working on that you want to get the word out about, and you want to do some tabling or some exhibiting, we're just drop us a note, info@SoCalLinuxExpo.org. And one of the things that we try to do is make sure that there's a strong balance between those community-driven projects and the commercial world of open source. Because when we started started Scale, open source wasn't this default that everybody was using, and so there weren't as many companies involved. As the years moved on, you end up in an expo floor with IBM and Red Hat and Google and all of these these public companies with billions of dollars, and want to make sure that at the same time that we're not losing the community grassroots feel. And so we want to keep right next to that Red Hat booth, you'll find a community booth focusing on user driven or developer driven open source rather than commercial.
Love that balance.
Yeah.
So
I noticed that's a fantastic way to do it, because you keep the Lugfest concept going while also making it a much bigger, having corporate corporate representatives and stuff like that from various different companies, and it was very impressive.
Yeah.
We love our sponsors. Like, they're great. Without them, we wouldn't be able to pay for Scale, and we wouldn't be able to, a lot of our communities are employed by those sponsors. So nothing against the commercial side of things. Please do go make money with open source. But there is a grassroots feel that we want to keep about the event. And so by having that balance, and so, at some events you would do that by throwing all the free booths down in the basement somewhere, kind of hidden in a separate room or in the back. And what we've tried to do is sort of intersperse them as much as we can, so that, you don't end up in, you don't get pockets of community. You feel the community throughout. So
that's awesome.
Yeah. That is truly one of the things that makes Scale special, is that an interaction between the corporate and the community. But at its heart, Scale is community. Mm-hmm. And one of the differences is at Scale, when you go to the booths, you're actually getting to talk to the developers. It's not just marketing people. It's not like going to CES.
Nothing wrong with marketing people too, right?
Oh, no.
But it is an opportunity to get. But it is an opportunity to. Depending on how you squint your eyes, my job has in the last several years may or may not have been some amount of marketing. So I'm not. I have no objections.
Sorry, Ilan, I didn't mean
no objections to marketers. No, I didn't take it that way, Jill. But it is nice that they do recognize that we're a very technical audience, and so a lot of the exhibitors will bring in their engineers or their developer advocates or other folks that are really ready to get down deep and technical with you on whatever topic or issue you want to get in on. And it's been great having a lot of open source project maintainers are at the show as well, and so you get a chance to meet with a person that wrote that piece of software you're excited about, or that you have a bug in and that you want to get some help with. So
yeah, that's always fantastic. And also, you were talking about how Scale is both have a corporate side of it and also the community side. And it also made me think about the connections you have with people when you meet people at different conferences. And Scale is not only a great place for learning new things and having fun just in general, and to meet so many people, you can make valuable connections to grow your work network, or whatever. Can you tell us some stories about how people have found new job opportunities or partnerships or something like that while attending the event? And just real quick, I'll give you like a starting point. I did that last year. I actually got a new job last year at Scale.
Yeah, I hear about it every year about. You come in every year, and like I said, it's a reunion. So you run into community members and friends that throughout Scale, and they tell me all the time. You say, "Oh, do you still work at whatever.com?" And they say, "Oh no, actually, last time I was here, I got to meet the open source team at Red Hat or Google or something, and now I work there now." Nice. And so that's great. This year we actually have we've brought back something we've done in the past, which is our career day. So to sort of amplify that and make that more available to attendees is nice. we have a job board where people post things, either post resumes or that they're looking for work, or they post things that they're looking to hire for. But we also have this career day where we're doing things like resume review and mock interviews and panels and sessions about how to either find a new career or find a new job, or how to get further in your career and sort of get mentored on how to reach that next step. So, we'll have more information on the website, again, SoCalLinuxExpo.org.
This is an especially important time too, because the tech industry has been hit so hard.
Oh, yeah.
We see it constantly, and the fact that you're doing some work here to kind of even amplify this further really shows your connection with the community, which is awesome.
And if you're somebody that's on sort of fallen on hard times, layoffs, what have you this year, and the scale ticket's a challenge for you, drop us a note. I'm sure there's something we can work out where you can still come in and attend the event. We try to make it very affordable for everybody. It's only like $85 at the moment to get a ticket for a show that, a lot of if you're going to commercial conferences or vendor conferences, it's going to be, thousands of dollars for 3-4 days of training.
I've seen some of these tickets prices and thought, that sounds, never mind.
Yeah. And so we work really hard to make sure that the ticket prices are approachable by all walks of life in the community, because we want to make sure that, again, we started this conference when we were, 17, 18, 19, 20 years old. None of us had money. Most of us didn't even work in tech yet. We just wanted to work in tech. So it's like, how do we make sure that things stay as accessible for the new generation as it was for us? And so, we try to keep the tickets cheap, as cheap as we can. But if that's a challenge for you, again, like I said, email us. We can probably figure something out where we help each other out and still get you to the show. And we'd love for you to attend the career day. And hopefully next year you tell us, no worries, don't need that scholarship or that comp pass anymore. I got this awesome job at wherever. But yeah, I mean it's been a really tough season this year with layoffs the last couple months. But I think Jill's also got a career story she can tell us.
Yeah. And Ilan, I want to let everyone know that we are here at Text Digital, we are a media sponsor of SCALE. And so I'm going to be helping with the marketing. So I'm a marketing person too, Ilan. I'm sorry.
There you go. That's great.
So anyways, this actually might make me cry a bit. I wouldn't be here on Destination Linux video podcasting if it weren't for the Southern California Linux Expo. SCALE is where I found the Linux community and the Linux Chicks of Los Angeles almost 2 decades ago. And I started a career in podcasting because of my love of Linux and because of the community of SCALE. So SCALE to me is home, it's my family, and the best weekend of the year. And I'm not kidding. It is the best weekend of the year for
And this
me.
is someone who goes to Disney every other weekend. So
Yeah.
that's really saying something.
Yes.
We can definitely see your room already, decorated with all the SCALE swag. So I'm sure it'll be interesting to see what new stickers make it up on the wall there.
Yes.
After March.
Absolutely.
But
Yes. So Ilan, I just want to thank you, Ilan Rabinovitch. I want to thank Philip Banks, Orv Beach, Phil Dubowitz, Lori Barfield, Steve Bibioff, Doug, and all the awesome volunteers for the marvelous job they do each year for truly making dreams come true. And many of whom I am honored to call dear friends.
Nice.
I appreciate you calling out all other folks that are behind the event. I think it's, I'm on here, and so sometimes people get to see my face or my name as I'm, the conference chairman, but it's not. That doesn't honestly mean all that much. The event's run by a lot of fantastic folks, and unfortunately, it's just hard to have 100 people sitting on the Video Ninja link together. I think I don't know what your limit of participants is.
I think that
I think 100 would be too much. A little bit.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But they're all incredible people.
Yeah. But I did want to call out. I think we've got just as a reminder, if for Tux Digital. For listeners of the, and viewers of this show and the rest of the Tux Digital shows, we did put out a promo code TUX, TUX, that you can use to get 50% off that already really cheap ticket. It's even less expensive for you all since you're friends with Jill and the team here at Destination Linux. And so,
love it.
Please do come out and join us. And if I haven't met you before and you're at the show, please stop me and say hi. I know sometimes it looks like we're running around busy. Organizers will usually be wearing a jersey, something like this, but the reason we put on the show is to be able to chat with you all and say hi, and that we're excited about seeing you all. So don't feel like you can't interrupt us or come say hi, because that's actually what makes us want to do next year. So
that's awesome.
Yay!
So you've almost made it through the interview. You've done an amazing job, but there's one thing left you didn't know about. It's our surprise. Your surprise is giving all of our audience this amazing discount code. Our surprise is asking you a lightning round of interview questions. They're about equal. Yeah.
Okay.
So in the lightning round, the goal here is
usually ridiculous.
And the goal here is to answer the first thing that comes to your mind, and then the next one of us will ask their question. We're not very good at that part yet, even though we've done lightning round. for a long
times.
time, but let's give it a go. So,
Okay.
are you ready?
I don't know how to be ready for this.
All right,
so let's
Michael,
do it.
start the timer.
All right, and go.
Favorite beverage of choice?
Ginger ale.
3 things everyone should have on them when they go to Scale.
Their badge. Don't forget that in your room. I don't know. Don't forget that deodorant when you're packing for the conference. There's a lot of us in the conference rooms.
Nice.
And a smile and passion for all things open source.
I love
Nice.
Oh, perfect.
Fantastic.
Maybe that's 4 things, but there you go.
it.
That's okay. So, Elon, what do you prefer, a cupcake or a muffin? This is an ongoing joke here.
Probably a cupcake.
Yes!
Oh,
I knew Elon was amazing.
Yeah,
Yes.
like the sweet,
Yes.
wonderful cupcake.
Cupcakes are so much better than muffins.
They're
Let's
okay.
go.
They're okay.
All
Muffins are better.
All right, and your favorite Linux distro of 2022. I didn't want to put you on the spot to just pick one distro, but just for the year of 2022, what was your favorite distro that year?
I don't know that I have a new distro for 2022. I'm still, I still run a lot of Ubuntu and Debian in my environments, at least in my personal stuff, and I run often CentOS or RHEL and sort of in some production environments. But like that's those are I'm still I guess keeping it old school and still sticking with with some of the originals, which is there. So
Very cool.
but that's lots of others over the years. I don't want to offend the Slackware folks, or the Gentoo folks, or the Arch folks, or whatever else.
They're all good.
I've used
We
them,
love them all.
Have used them all at one point or another as my primary driver. But these days it's somewhere between it's either Debian based or RHEL based. So.
I'm so glad Arch is your favorite. Hey, did you notice that all of our shirts are all
Nice
scale?
segue.
Nice segue.
Yeah, there we go.
I didn't notice that it's a little hard with the black on gray.
Everybody.
That's true. That's true.
But
Everybody's
it's
repping
awesome.
scale there.
Yeah, I got my Scale
yeah.
6X shirt.
Right. So we want to thank you, Elon, for coming on to the show. It means a lot to us.
Sure.
It means especially a lot to Jill, who has been here this whole time and has brought us into this love of Scale as well, which I'm so happy she's sharing that with us. The DO crew will be at Scale.
Woohoo!
So we're
Awesome.
starting our preparations now. And Scale is held March 9th through the 12th at the Pasadena Convention Center in Pasadena, California. Elon, thank you
convenient.
so much for coming on the show, and we can't wait
Thanks
to
for
see
having
you
us.
at the event.
Thanks for having us, and we'll see you in a few weeks. And don't forget that discount code, folks, TUX, TUX, if you would like to get another 50% off your Scale
Awesome.
registration.
Thank you for doing that. That's amazing.
Thanks.
See you all in just a few weeks.
See ya.
Thanks.
Looking forward to it.
Love you, Elon.
This episode of Destination Linux is brought to you by Bitwarden. You can get started right now by going to bitwarden.com/tux to get your free account. So Bitwarden is a password manager, and if you're not using a password manager, you are missing out on a very nice thing to have, and that is peace of mind, because you know that your online accounts are secure with Bitwarden because they provide you with tools to store your passwords in a secured vault, auto-generate those passwords and usernames for you, and even automatically fill in passwords on login forms, so you don't have to do any of this stuff. Plus, you have access across many different types of devices, whether it's your web browser, mobile application, desktop application, or even on the command line. So if you want to use the terminal to do it, you can with Bitwarden. Plus, Bitwarden seals and encrypts your private data with end-to-end encryption before it ever leaves your devices, so you know you're the only person with access to your data, which is, of course, very important when we're talking about passwords. And also with Bitwarden, you get so much great stuff, but you can also get the premium account, which I highly suggest because you get tons of stuff like the 1 gigabyte encrypted file storage, 2-step login with YubiKey, U2F, Duo, Vault health reports, Bitwarden authenticator for temporary one-time passwords, priority customer service, and so much more. There's so much to list. This is impossible to give you everything right now, so go check it out. Go to bitwarden.com/tux to see all the great stuff you can get, and you can get all of this for less than $1 per month. That's right. Less than $1 per month gives you all of this great premium features at Bitwarden. So go to bitwarden.com/tux again to get started with your awesome password managing experience. It's finally time to talk about the desktop environment that should not be named, because we're going to name it now, and that's KDE Plasma 5.27, because they have a new beta that is out, which is fantastic. There's so many cool things that they have released in this new beta that is coming with 5.27. Some of the new features are not only awesome, they're in fact incredible. Like, I am super excited for the tiling thing. We're going to get to that in a second. But first of all, multi-monitor support is much improved for this one. And I've already been, I've used multi-monitors for Plasma for a long time, and it's been great. But they have done like a whole rebuild of the back end to make multi-monitor support even better, which is just so fantastic to see, because there's going to be so much more improvements before, like, fixing bugs here and there, because of course all kinds of software is going to have bugs, because
Oh, you make those kind of excuses for KDE, but if I mention another desktop environment, it's like, oh my gosh, they have a bug. But KDE, you're like, of course
I would
no,
that's not remotely true. I would be happy to give them the same level of leniency, unless it's all about app indicators. Then no, it's about.
Fair.
Well, what about rat poison? You probably consider that a bug in of itself.
No, rat poison is great because it's so ridiculous that it's like it.
I love it. Only Jill.
It surpasses, like it supersedes the concept of like having bugs. Yeah, it's meant to be weird, and therefore it's okay. But there's like improvements to no more default empty desktops after connecting a new screen that you already connected in the past, which can be annoying depending on people who have like laptops that are reconnecting monitors back over and over. So that's fantastic, and there's many other improvements, especially like better experience with USB-C based docks, which is fantastic, right? So I am super excited for Plasma 527 for sure.
I feel like this is an attempt by the KDE team to get me to be the one person who's kind of the last holdover of being this KDE desktop.
You
not
want
only
to use it right.
enthusiast, but obsession that people have with KDE is me. And then they go and roll in this tiling tool to make tiling even cooler and more accessible than ever before in KDE. Yes. And when I read this news, I was like, cold sweats were coming down my face. I was like, can't install it. I don't give in to Michael. And now but I'm looking at their cool GUI tool, and I'm like, good. Man, they really look like they've done a really good job here. It's not like you couldn't tile before in KDE, but you had to do a bunch of different things. And
the tiling was more like it was more rigid. Now you can do a much cleaner way of doing it, and also a much faster way of doing it, which is just awesome to see.
Yeah, I love it. If you look at the GUI tool that they've put in there as well, if you look at like how macOS, for instance, has implemented some of their tiling, where you right click on any of the panes and then it gives you an option. Do you want it horizontal? Do you want it vertical? And for people who don't want to learn shortcut keys, this is really accessible. It makes it very easy to get to. And what their GUI looks like reminds me exactly of that, actually better. And allows you to basically be able to just right click and say, hey, I want this horizontal. I want these windows vertical. I want this. And it's a nice GUI visual for you to see and do. I really like the work KDE's been doing recently on things like this. They've always had all of the features. Like, you can't get away from it. Anytime I say, well, Michael, this desktop has that, he'd be like, KDE does too. I'm like, where? And sure enough, it's buried in some corner of KDE that nobody can find. But what I love that they're doing now is they're kind of bringing that user experience up to the forefront and making those things easier for people to be able to control. And this just goes and shows you there's a lot of work that goes into creating a GUI like this and making it work properly. And I love seeing it from KDE.
Yeah. And one thing I wanted to say about multi-monitor support is KDE has honestly, from the start, has been really good with multi-monitor support.
Yeah.
They were always way ahead of all the other desktop managers. Absolutely. From even when you played games, and this is like 10 years ago, when you played games, you could span them across 3 monitors, which no one was doing back then out of the box, which was nice. And but now, when you have 3 or more screens, you will be presented with a dialog where you can rearrange the screens in a logical order so that you can say, this is my screen number 1, this is my screen number 2. And you can arrange them easily horizontally or vertically. And honestly, this is a wonderful feature that I have grown to love with the NVIDIA Control Center, and a feature that us Mesa driver users using AMD and Intel GPUs don't have by default. So we need the desktop managers to all include this capability. I mean, honestly, I love using XRander in the command line and the ARander GUI tool, but we can't expect new users to Linux to know how to do this.
And also, as someone who is totally capable of using XRander and ARander, if I don't have to, I don't want to.
Oh, I use it all the time.
Like I love the fact that they're putting this effort into making it easier to do these things, because multi-monitor support is something that a lot of people are dealing with like, especially if they have docks. If you have a laptop with a dock and you connect multiple monitors, it's such an important thing. Like also the fact that they have it where there was an issue in many desktop environments. There's an issue when you connect to a dock, it might not remember the right monitor placements. And the fact that they're putting work into that is very, very good to see.
Yeah.
And also the tiling thing, like Ryan was talking about, the tiling is something that I love tiling, but also it can be cumbersome depending on what kind of tiling system you're using. So I'm not really a big fan of doing elaborate tiling, but based on the way they're doing it, it seems much more, user friendly and pretty intuitive, especially when you can just hold shift and then move wherever you want them to be, and they all stick to each other and kind of do this tile thing. That's one of the ways I was hoping that tiling would become a thing inside of Plasma, and to actually see them doing it, I'm very excited to play with this.
Yeah, very cool.
In celebration of what Ryan deems the greatest opening pilot of all time.
It is.
Last of Us premiere. He loves that.
Oh, such a good show.
Okay, so our game today we're going to talk about is Zombie Admin. And you can play solo or with a colleague in local co-op. You shoot zombies using your keyboard, mouse, or gamepad. And there's 8 procedurally generated floors, 8 deadly zombie co-workers, and 5 different weapons. And
I love the co-workers, zombie co-worker. I have a few zombie co-workers I deal with. Yeah.
So the game, happens in the zombie apocalypse. And you have to go to work even though it is the zombie apocalypse. You got to do your job.
Of course you do.
Drink coffee to stay alive and take bathroom breaks to stay productive.
That's part of the game.
Love this.
Yes.
That's awesome.
Yes. And it's a humorous top-down shooter. And, it has you working up the corporate ladder all the way to the rescue helicopter on the rooftop.
You have to become an executive to get saved, Michael. This is not.
I love
people
this.
think this is a silly premise. This is reality. If a zombie apocalypse happened, you'd still be expected to
go to work. Yeah.
You wouldn't get saved unless you were an
Oh, my
executive in a
goodness.
suite. You'd get the helicopter to come get. This is real life, people. This is not.
Yeah.
A game.
And I love what one of the reviewers said, Michael and Ryan. Do you imagine your coworkers being mindless corporate zombies? It's the perfect game for the coffee break from your dreadful office work.
Nice.
Great
This is
review.
awesome. And it's only $3.99 on Steam, or you can grab it over at itch.io. And it works on Linux out of the box.
Nice.
Such a great concept game. Yeah, you got to check this one out. Zombie Admin even has a great name. Like, 'cause you got to still work. You're the zombie admin, and also slay some zombies on the side there.
Yeah.
In our software spotlight, one of the things you may be working on at work is doing something with SQL or MySQL or Postgres or SQL Server or any of those things. And one of the software that you can check out is Beekeeper. So this allows you to connect through firewalls, encrypt your connection with SSL, tunnel through SSH, save connections and passwords, and Beekeeper Studio will encrypt it all for you. So this is a complete studio to allow you to manage all of your SQL needs. It also has SQL auto-completion and a built-in editor to provide syntax highlighting, autocomplete suggestions for you. So this is a great alternative. We were talking about VS Code and the extension nightmare. And a lot of people I know use VS Code actually to set up and connect to SQL and all that stuff. If you're looking for an alternative, check out Beekeeper here because it has the editor built in as well. You can also save and favorite your various queries that you have in SQL. You can edit table data really fast and simple with table editing right there within the tool itself. You can even create tables, and you can set up filters on your tables through the GUI. You don't even have to write SQL code to do it for you. And it also allows you to export your data in a ton of different formats there. So we talked about the Beaver before, which is also awesome. That's the one I use a lot, but I got my eye on Beekeeper too, because this is really looking like an amazing tool. So check out Beekeeper. It's out there as a flat pack as well, if you want to easily check it out.
The tip of the week this week is going to be talking about finance. Everyone loves finance, right? And times are tough, and a lot of people are trying to figure out how to manage their money effectively, and all of this, well, madness, I guess. But the tip of the week is to use open source money management tools. If you didn't know those existed, they do. They can help you track your expenses, and also you can help see the income and how you're doing it. You can connect it to your bank for some of these. There's a lot of cool stuff you can check out. So first of all, we're going to talk about a few. There's more than these, but we're going to talk about these because they're probably the most popular. And that's GNU Cash, which just had a big update recently with 5.0. There's also Home Bank, KMyMoney, and Scrooge. Scrooge with a K because it's made by KDE. And as you might expect, the KMyMoney is as well. I also really just love the name Scrooge. It's a fantastic name for
I know we
a
talked
money
about
management
this
tool.
before, but why did they have two money managers? Why don't they merge those into one since KDE
That's an
developed
interesting
both?
question. That's an interesting question. And the answer is, so there are many other options for open source tools for this. So, and these are just a few. For the first step about, not stressing about money is to do something about it. And there's going to be a lot of great value from these if you want to check them out. So doing finance tracking is something that a lot of people aren't typically happy or wanting to do, but these kind of apps make it easier to do it.
Let me give you a tip that makes it way more fun. Like what I do is I put in all my expenses into the money management, but not my income. So I don't get depressed with the fact of how am I going to pay all these bills. I just have fun with looking at all the things I spend my money on.
Ah,
of course.
That's
That's a
cool,
good one.
right?
Genius.
Why not?
Genius, Yeah. Just enjoy that. For our events, I wanted to talk about nothing other than SCALE here. We're going to be at SCALE. Surprise. We're going to be at SCALE. The 20th
really?
annual Southern California Linux Expo will take place on March 9th through the 12th. And this is what gets me, the Pasadena Convention Center, which is in, Michael?
Pasadena, California.
It's so
Home
easy.
of the
convenient.
Rose Parade.
There you go. Pasadena, California.
I don't know if you noticed that, but during the call out in the interview, you said Pasadena, California. I said, "Oh, that's so convenient."
Yeah.
Pasadena and Pasadena,
Just it's
California.
become a habit now.
It's so easy
Yes.
to memorize. And you can come out and have the best time of your life. You get to hang out with Jill. You get to hang out with Michael. Okay, you get to hang out with me. I mean,
Yes,
that's going to be
Ryan
amazing.
and Michael, they're amazing.
Jill's
And you
the
can't
main
miss
attraction
Michael.
to SCALE for sure.
'Cause he's like 6'4". So if you're looking for us, just look for a really tall person, and that's Michael, and then follow him, and you'll get to whatever we have going on there. We're not quite
Unless
sure
I'm
all
slouching at the
things.
time, then I might not seem
Yeah.
as tall if I'm slouching. Just be clear.
Well, I will make sure to go live on the expo hall floor like I did last time. That was so much fun.
That was a lot of fun. Yeah. Jill took it to the next level too, because I went live, but then it was just, focusing on us. And then Jill's like, let me take people around the different booths. It's genius, Jill. Genius.
Yeah.
Yep. And so that's it, the end of our show. And a big thank you to each and every one of you for supporting us by watching or listening to Destination Linux. However you do it, we love your faces. We're here every Sunday at 1 p.m. Eastern live at tuxdigital.com/live. And the best part is everyone is invited to watch the recording of Destination Linux each and every week. We can't wait to see you in the chat. And if you want to chat after the show, you can also check out tuxdigital.com/discord. Lots of conversations going on. And all of our patrons are connected now. So if you want to chat about Hardware Addicts, the DOS Geek channel, This Week in Linux, Destination, you're a patron of any of those, you get all the perks from all the shows right there in that one space. How cool is that?
And if you want to become a patron, just go to
Michael. But
you did, but I was actually transitioning very well until you ruined it just there.
all right, continue.
And if you do want to become a patron, you can go to tuxdigital.com/contribute and you can join us in the patron-only post show, which happens every week in our 60,000 square foot virtual stadium right after the show. And you get access to unedited versions of the show if you missed it live. So go to tuxdigital.com/contribute to get all access to that, plus all the other perks that you get from all the other shows as well on the Tux Digital Network. And if you'd like to get some Tux Digital swag, where you want some Destination Linux swag or some Hardware Addict swag or more, there's so much great stuff. Go to tuxdigital.com/store to get some hats, hoodies, mugs, stickers, coasters, t-shirts, just so much great stuff. tuxdigital.com/store.
And make sure to check out all the incredible shows here on Text Digital. We have the Pseudo Show, This Week in Linux, the DOS Geek Channel, Linux Out Loud, Hardware Addicts Game Sphere, and Linux Saloon. And everyone head to textdigital.com and subscribe to all these incredible shows. And don't forget to leave a rating on your favorite app so others can discover the power of open source and keep those penguins marching and the full Monty of Linux on open source awesome sauce.
Everybody have a great week, and remember that the journey itself is just as important as the destination.
Thanks, everyone. We'll see you next week.
Love you all.
Week. I like the ending.
Woohoo!
Experience.
Experience.
It was very Shakespearean, man. You just threw that out there like, experience. And I
Exactly.
feel like the crowd was supposed to throw roses onto the stage.
exactly.
You take a bow.
Exactly. Yes.
Experience.
Thank you.
Yes. It's good.
Art thou passworded stored securely?